we're making 3 different kinds of festive Christmas bark. From left to right, we're taking the classic turtle candy and turning it into turtle bark. Shoved in the middle is our layered white and dark chocolate peppermint bark. And completing our trio of barks, Christmas crack. A sweet and salty holiday favorite with a buttery cracker base coated in a layer of caramel topped with a layer of chocolate. All 3 barks are topped with various holiday cheer, from sprinkles to gold sanding sugar to pecans, crushed candy canes, and the traditional red and green colored candies. Don't stress about perfection. Bark is meant to be fun, a little messy, and totally delicious. Get ready to share a treat that looks impressive but takes no time at all. Let's make the turtle bark first. First things first, we're going to need to melt an entire 12-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips. I like to add in a cap full of vegetable oil. If you need an alternative, coconut oil works too. Just keep in mind, depending on the brand, it might add in a hint of coconut flavor to your chocolate. We're going to melt this in the microwave for 1 to 1.5 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds. It's important to stop and stir your chocolate so it doesn't burn or seize. Even if, after the first round of 20 seconds, it doesn't look like anything melted, rotating the chocolate chips around is important for even heat distribution. Once the chocolate chips have melted, we're going to leave it in our bowl, stirring every so often to keep it melted while we work on melting our caramel. I got distracted and started pouring out my chocolate, forgetting I needed to wait until the caramel was also ready. I'll tell you why that was a mistake later. For the caramel, we need 25 caramel squares or 1 1/4 cup of caramel bits, plus 1 tablespoon of heavy cream. And just like with the chocolate, we're going to melt this in the microwave for about 1 to 1.5 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds. Now that both the chocolate and the caramel have melted, spread the chocolate out evenly onto a 10 by 15 inch baking pan lined with parchment paper. Then we're going to go in with our caramel and drop dollops of this yummy stuff all over the chocolate. Use as much or as little as you like. We're then going to go in with a knife and swirl the two together like so. Here's why I should have waited until the caramel was ready before spreading out my chocolate layer. By the time I got to this part, putting on the pecans, my chocolate was already starting to set around the edges. If this happens to you, don't panic. I have a sneaky trick we can do to help stick any unstick pieces to your bark. For this, we're going to need a handful or 2 of more chocolate. I'm going with melting candies, but chocolate chips also work just as good. This is the brand I'm using from Sam's Club, but really any brand of melting candies will work. Same deal as before, into a microwave for 1 to 1.5 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds or so. Once your chocolate has cooled, transfer it to a sandwich baggie or piping bag and drizzle it all over your bark. I like to do a sweeping motion back and forth and only in one direction. This will help lock down any loose pieces. I do apologize for bumping into the camera. I'm left-handed and couldn't move the camera at that particular moment, because unlike chocolate chips, melting candies tend to harden back up very quickly. Adjusting the angle was just not an option. And while this drizzle is still wet, we're going to go in with a little bit of this gold sanding sugar. I picked this up from Walmart in their cake decorating aisle. If you can't find this at Walmart, I'll put a link down below in the video's description box. But if you're at the store looking for this stuff, there are 2 sizes to look out for. Coarse sanding sugar, which is the chunkier version, and then there's the fine version. You want the fine version. Give your bark a good sprinkling, and then we're going to pop this in the fridge to fully set for at least 30 minutes. While that's in the fridge, let's make the peppermint bark. To a microwave safe bowl, we're going to do the same thing as before and melt a 12-ounce bag of semi-sweet chocolate chips with a cap full of vegetable oil. As a side note, vegetable oil is used to help prevent the chocolate from seizing up, becoming thick and lumpy, making it easier to melt smoothly. In case you're wondering, that's why I use it. Since this chocolate will be our peppermint bark's base layer, we're going to add in a little bit of peppermint extract. It's important to note that adding in extracts like this peppermint extract directly to melted chocolate can cause it to seize, turning it into a grainy stiff mass because the water liquid content in the extract can disrupt the delicate structures of the melted chocolate. Preferably, you want to use an oil-based extract, but this common extract is probably what you have in your kitchen. And that's okay, we're only going to use a little less than a capful, so it shouldn't be too noticeable at all since it's such a small amount. But just in case, that's why we're only going to use it in the base layer. Grab your 10 by 15 inch baking pan lined with parchment paper and pour out your chocolate in a nice even layer. Since we don't want our next white layer to swirl into this one, once we're done spreading this out, we're going to pop this in the fridge to harden for 15 minutes. It's been a few minutes, and as you can see, our first layer is fully set. Okay, let's set this off to the side and work on our next layer. For the white chocolate layer, we need 12 ounces of white chocolate and some crushed candy canes. I've already unwrapped about 8 candy canes and placed them in a quart-sized baggie. Using the back of a measuring cup, we're going to break up as much of the candy canes as we possibly can. If this seems like too much work, pass the task on to one of the grandkids, or pull out your food processor, that works too. Once everything in the bag looks nice and crushed, give the contents a good inspection. We want small, easy to bite down on pieces. If you see any overly large pieces, give them the old 1-2 one more time. Then we're ready to transfer everything to a small bowl. and set that off to the side while we work on our chocolate. For the white chocolate, I'm going with this package of almond bark, and we're going to use about half of it. As a side note, there are no actual almonds or almond flavoring in this. That's just what the packaging is called. You could use white chocolate chips if you prefer. If you do, I would suggest choosing the Ghirardelli brand. Out of all the white chocolates, I personally feel like Ghirardelli tastes the best. I would say this about almond bark, it ranks second on my list of white chocolates for its flavor and very affordable costs. Same as before, we're going to add in a cupful size of vegetable oil to help keep the chocolate from seizing in the microwave. And we're going to microwave this for 1 to 1.5 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds or until the chocolate has fully melted. And since we already put peppermint extract in our bottom layer, for this layer we're going to sprinkle in some of our super fine crushed candy cane dust from our bowl of crushed candy canes. Just grab a teaspoon and dig around the bottom of your candy cane bowl for the really fine candy cane particles, and then we're going to add that to the white chocolate. Some bigger chunks are going to inevitably make it in, and that's totally fine. Just try to mostly add in only the candy cane dust. We're going to give this a quick mix in. Maybe just add in a wee bit more. Okay, and we're going to save the bigger pieces to sprinkle on top. All that's left is to pour out our white chocolate onto the already hardened dark chocolate. Keep in mind, if you're pouring your warm chocolate on a completely chilled slab of fridge cold chocolate, you're literally going to have moments before your white chocolate starts to harden. I find it's best to let your dark chocolate come to room temperature while you're smashing the candy canes. So by the time you actually get to this step, you won't be rushing to get it all spread out before it starts to harden. Once your white layer has been evenly spread out, grab your remaining crushed candy canes and sprinkle them all over the top. And just like before, if your chocolate has already started to harden before you've even sprinkled on all of your crushed candy canes, you can go back over the top with a drizzle of melted white chocolate. Here I go, bumping into you again. My apologies. And for everyone squirming in their seats, yes, I'm fully aware that technically speaking, almond bark is not actually white chocolate. It might look similar to white chocolate, but it's typically made with cheaper substitutes instead of cocoa butter, which is the key ingredient in real white chocolate. Let's pop this in the fridge for 30 minutes to fully set. For our last of bark, our Christmas crack, we're going to line our 10 by 15 inch baking pan with foil. Then we're going to grab a package of original saltine crackers and spread them out in an even single layer. I actually really like these crackers all on their own without any dips or whatever on them. I can almost guarantee I ate 1 or 2 before laying these out, and as luck would have it, I was short one flippin' cracker. I did have to open another package. Okay, now that that's done, let's make the brown sugar buttery goodness. To a pot on the stove, we need 1 cup of salted butter plus 1 cup of brown sugar. We're going to melt this over medium heat. Once the butter has melted, we're going to bring this to a boil, stirring constantly for 3 minutes. This brown sugar mixture must boil for 3 minutes or it won't set, and all you'll end up with is a tray full of soggy crackers, which we don't want. Once the 3 minutes are up, we're going to carefully pour this out over our crackers. With a spatula, carefully spread out your mixture. Being careful not to push your crackers around, we still want them in that even layer. Let's pop this into a preheated oven at 400 degrees for 5 minutes. Then we're going to let it rest out of the oven for another 5 minutes. While that's in the oven, we're going to melt 12 ounces of semi-sweet chocolate chips. Well, I'm all out of chocolate chips, so I'm improvising with these melting candies. Either way, just like before, we're going to add in a capful of vegetable oil and microwave for 1 to 1.5 minutes, stirring every 20 seconds so the chocolate doesn't burn or start to seize. While that's melting, let's make sure we have our toppings at the ready. Grab your tray of crackers and pour that chocolate all over the top, covering the entire surface in a nice even layer. Also to note, you can find a list of ingredients and directions posted down below in the video's description box for all 3 barks. Once everything looks good to go, add on your red and green candies, followed by your Christmas sprinkles. For a final special touch, I'm going to sprinkle in this fine gold sanding sugar. If you're interested in this, there is a link to it in the video's description box. I will say this, the camera does not do this gold sanding sugar justice. When viewed on the platter, it sparkles and shines, giving the bark that special, elegant touch. Once you're satisfied, let's pop this in the fridge to fully set, about 30 minutes or so. All that's left is to break up each bark. Depending on how you want your pieces to look, this can either be done by hand or with a knife. For the turtle bark, I opted for a knife. Seeing as nuts and caramels were involved, I wanted a nice clean cut. So for this, I chose a knife. For the peppermint bark, I wanted a rough diamond pattern. I first cut my bark into strips and then cut them at a diagonal. For the last bark, the Christmas crack, I started with strips and then broke up those pieces by hand from there. Here's an ingredients list. Making Christmas bark is one of the simplest and most rewarding holiday treats. You just can't go wrong. Thanks for watching, and if you like this video, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out, and I'll see you all in the next video.